Okay, we'll move on to committee reports. Legislative update, Mrs. Shorter.
Yes, I do. I have some information that I want to let the community know about. It's not a formalized report, but I do want to read some of the, pull it short. I guess we'll read it all if we have a little time. So the 134th General Assembly, there's been a bill introduced. It's House Bill 290. And House Bill 290 has a list of co-sponsors, including our own Representative Jennifer Gross. She's a co-sponsor of the bill. The bill itself is another bill that is a direct threat to public education. So let me just read the bill to you, because I think it's important that the public understands what districts are facing. To express the intent of the General Assembly to establish a school funding formula that allows families to choose the option for all computed funding amounts associated with the student's education to follow them to the public and non-public schools they attend. Section 1. It is the General Assembly's intent that sections of the revised code be amended, enacted, or repealed to create a thorough and efficient statewide foundation funding formula for the education of all students in this state, including students enrolled in city, local, and exempted village school districts. Community schools established under Chapter 3314 of the revised code, STEM schools established under Chapter 3326 of the revised code, and non-public schools that allows families to choose the option for all computed funding amounts associated with students' education to follow them to the schools they attend. The word follow is pertinent there. So this formula will ensure Ohio maintains strong funding for public and non-public schools while cultivating innovation and opportunity for all children. The skinny and not so sweet with this bill is that it's essentially a voucher program, but it's a voucher program that doesn't have any types of stipulations with it. Basically, any child in the state of Ohio would be allowed to have the funding that they're apportioned, per their district and their state and such. That funding would follow them to whatever school they wanted to attend. Non-public, it could also be a public school, which is similar to what's happening now in some cases if a child wants to transfer to a district that accepts them on open enrollment. This would essentially open it up to all schools, public, non-public, and what have you. Essentially, this is taking Ed Choice and blowing away all of the standards that they at least tried to put in place for Ed Choice. There were stipulations. If your school district had a certain score, if the income of the family, did not, if the income of the family met a certain threshold, those were qualifications for Ed Choice. Understand that House Bill 290, as it's written right now, basically does not have any requirements. It's for any student. It's a voucher program that would be for any student. And as I mentioned, the word follow in the legislation is critical because as we're saying follow, my interpretation of that is these are not monies that would just be authorized from the state separate and aside from the monies that come directly to the school district. This money would be taken directly from the district's coffers. Right now, the bill only has, total on that, roughly 20 sponsors, but I think the important thing to note is, as we are trying to move House Bill 1 forward, which has now become a part of the education budget that the Senate is hammering out. House Bill 1 and fair funding essentially covers a lot of promise. It brings about the promise of a lot of funding. And if it did pass, and if we did get that funding, we would be in great shape, you know. However, House Bill 290 would basically be a sledgehammer that comes in and wipes all of that away. Because the threat of this is, it's basically a voucher program with no limitations. And that's the way that I'm interpreting it. If I'm wrong, please correct me, but as of right now, that's how I see this bill. And I will just say again that our own representative, Jennifer Gross, is a co-sponsor of this bill. I'm very disappointed to see that. I had conversations with Mrs. Gross before the election in which she was the winner, and I expressed concerns about Ed Choice. We had a conversation in depth about school funding and the problems with it. She didn't give me a direct answer at that point, and so I was definitely concerned because I've had conversations with our other state senators, our other representatives in the area, and I've gotten straightforward answers, and there's been a lot of support. At this point, it's a concern that we have our own co-sponsoring this bill. So I would ask that citizens reach out and contact Mrs. Gross and please express your concerns with House Bill 290. I think it's important that we protect public education in the state of Ohio. The threats pertain to unlimited vouchers. It's pretty obvious. And so we don't want this bill to make it out of the House. We don't want it to gather momentum. So we need citizens to call and put pressure on their legislators. And I've given you the legislator that you can start with right here. And so this is what's happening with public education. We are always in a position of having to be reactive. There's always something coming. There's never a point, you know, in the last 10 years where we can just sort of sit back and relax. There's either mandates that are unfunded, which is a problem. It just doesn't stop. And we fought back at Choice, I thought rather successfully, and as was covered in the budget by Nancy, like 2.6 million, 2.9 million, those funds are no longer coming directly out of our coffers. They're coming from the state. So we didn't win everything we wanted. However, we were able to stave off the worst of that frontal attack. This is a new one, and this is worse. And so, again, I ask that the community help us. If you love public education, if you love Fairfield City Schools and you want to protect Fairfield City Schools along with all other neighborhood schools, public and private, you know, because I think, honestly, this is the type of thing that's not good for public or private schools. We're asking for your help, or I'm asking for your help, and I'm hoping that you will join. That's it. Sorry for the length.
It's okay, thank you. Any questions for Mr. Shorter? Thank you very much. Okay, next is the Butler Tech update. Butler Tech senior ceremony was held on May 17th at the Cintas Center. The student master of ceremonies for the second ceremony was Fairfield's Ariana Davis, and she did an amazing job. Fairfield students have earned 319 industry credentials this year, with an additional 255 credentials that are in the final stages of completion. 5 Fairfield mechatronics students have earned their associate's degree while in high school. These students are Ezekiel Chenoweth, Alexander Coomer, Braden Kavalauskas, Jose Martinez Diaz, and Elena Willis. Congratulations to them on this outstanding accomplishment. Groundbreaking took place this morning for the permanent natural science building on the Monroe campus. Demolition of the old horse stable will take place in June to make room for the new building. Again, monies for this project have been budgeted over the last 5 years and is projected to be completed without asking the community for a bond levy for construction or maintenance. An MOU has been reached between Butler Tech and Fairfield Township for a used fire engine in exchange for $30,000 in scholarships for firefighters. It's a great partnership. Finally, Butler Tech leadership have established an Access, Equity, Inclusion, and Diversity Committee. This group consists of teachers from each of the 50 school buildings that Butler Tech has staff members teaching. This group is in the infancy stage, but plans to form 5 priorities: recruitment and retention of more underrepresented high school students, recruit and retain more unrepresented adult ed students, recruit and retain more staff of color, collaborate with businesses to offer more opportunities for minorities, and to change the academic processes and culture to align with the needs of all students. They actually gave the board T-shirts, and it's from former Congressman and activist John Lewis. It says, "Good trouble." He talked about getting in good trouble if you see something wrong, say something or do something. And it's to help stimulate the board to get into uncomfortable conversations. So I think that's something that's well needed. I think it's something that here at Fairfield we've been doing for a while, and it's good to see that Butler Tech has also added that to their agenda. Any questions or comments? Okay, Planning Commission, Mr. Begley?
Just last night, City of Fairfield had a special training session for the Building and Zoning Appeals Board and the Planning Commission Board, so that was helpful.
Okay. Any comments or questions for Mr. Begley? Mrs. Gundrum, Student Achievement?
Okay, it's always hard to pick what to do because there are just so many amazing things that go on all the time. There are too many to mention, but we did have 33 AP scholars this time around, and that is an amazing number. A couple of standout newsworthy items I saw. I've talked before about the Business Professionals of America competitions that have been held, and Parth Thakor, who is a senior, came in second in the nation in health administration procedures, which is amazing. I was involved in a similar type of organization when I was in high school, and I learned so many practical things, and it's wonderful to see our students excel at that, especially second in the nation. That's a big deal. So congratulations. And then also we have a freshman softball player, Jillian Huey. She pitched a perfect game. Yep. So congratulations. That is a big feat. I think I read that's only the 5th in the program's history.
Wow.
Yeah, so congratulations to her as well.
And that was in a tournament game.
Yeah. Yeah.
Pretty impressive. All right, any questions or comments for Mrs. Gundrum? Okay, Parks and Recreation, Mr. Clark.
Yeah, thank you. It was kind of a short meeting. Tiffany was on vacation, but had a couple things that we talked about. The South Trace, the outside of the building there where it's got an overhang and a place to hang out, they're going to extend that so it will fit more people, more golfers, and then put a fire pit out there as well. So they're trying to attract more of a evening hangout type atmosphere to after golf, or just show up in the afternoon to hang out, grab some food or drink or whatever, and hang out there. So hopefully that will happen this year. We also heard from some representatives from FYBA, FYFB, which is football, and then this FOSC, SC, the Fairfield Optimist Soccer Club. And it's really cool to hear how many kids are involved, even through the COVID season the last couple years. Kids played baseball last year, and they had a record number for what they thought they were going to have. Not as many as the year before, but they had a good over 400 kids played. And then this year they had about 600 kids. So kids are getting back out there playing ball. Football is coming up, and it was nice to hear the relationship that the FYBA had with the football league with crossing their seasons, because so many kids play baseball and football, so they coordinate together to make that happen. And then soccer. You all know about the soccer fields. They they do very well down there. And I was sit down by Joyce Park. He said, "No, it's not Joyce Park. It's Optimist Club." I said, "You're right. You're right."
Yeah.
So, but it was really good to hear those three representatives speak on those recreational sports that we have in Fairfield, because it's a big part of what our kids do. So, yeah.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Clark.
You're welcome.
Any comments or questions for Mr. Clark?